Team 9 will be presenting about performance management and termination within a large healthcare system. Team 9 consists of 6 members, which include Anna Menchaca, Giselle Montes, Janelle Morales, Jose Ramirez, Alejandra Villarta, and Deborah Ibarra. What is performance management? An ongoing two-way process between managers and employees, aligns with the organization's strategic plan, supports the manager-employee relationship, promotes communication to build trust while observing employee confidentiality. Performance management is an ongoing two-way process between managers and employees. A performance management system should align with the organization's strategic plan. It also supports the manager-employee relationship and encourages employees to improve and develop as a producer. Managing performance also builds trust between employee and managers while also observing employee confidentiality. An effective system will also set a deadline for each step in process. The process. This diagram depicts the proper process for performance management. First, the manager and employee will establish expectations for work performance. Then, the manager may assist the employee in setting goals so that there is a viable objective for the employee to reach. Counseling can then also be offered to help the employee address issues and guide them towards improvement. The manager and employee will then meet for a one-on-one session to discuss those issues and how to resolve them. The manager must determine whether these goals have been met and if disciplinary action will be required. This will lead to a final performance evaluation where expectations are compared to the actual performance. Establishing expectations. Review the employee position description. Managers and employees should have clear communication about what they are expected to accomplish on the job. Supervisors and employees should have a copy of a final position description on file for future references. When establishing expectations, the manager is expected to review the employee position's description to determine its accuracy. Managers should address the duties of the job and agree with the employee as to what activities are expected on the job. It is important that supervisors and employees have a copy of the final job description in their files for future reference and to use in performance appraisals or management. Setting goals. Managers and employees should work together to set goals. Goals should be specific, measurable. If both managers and employees agree, the goals are entered into a goal plan. Goals should be on file and accessible. Setting goals is crucial to employee success. A goal will allow employees to work to achieve a certain task or project and encourage productivity and efficiency. A manager should work with his or her employees in unison to set job-related goals and make a plan on how to go about reaching them. These specific goals should be specific, measurable, but also realistic and attainable. Upon agreeing on the goals can be entered into a goal plan for tracking. Goals should also be kept on file and be accessible. Counseling. Appropriate for addressing problems and potential problems from escalating. May be a form of informal guidance or work-related advice. May improve communication between supervisor and employee. may never become personal. Counseling sessions should be documented by managers. Counseling employees allows managers to address issues before having to take crucial action. Since the best time to address the problem is before it occurs, offering counseling to employees can prevent potential problems from escalating. Counseling can be in the form of informal advice or guidance or work-related advice. Counseling can also improve and strengthen communication between supervisor and employee. However, counseling must never become personal and should be strictly work-related. It is important to ensure that counseling sessions are documented by managers in order to keep record of when and how the issues were addressed. Manager-employee one-on-one. An in-person review discussion between manager and employee. Employees actively participate in the performance evaluation by providing feedback to managers. Documentation of the meeting should include manager and employees' signatures to acknowledge the employee's involvement. Employee self-appraisals can be served as a constructive part of a performance evaluation system, but are typically only required for managerial positions. A manager and employee one-on-one session allows an in-person review discussion that addresses performance. A one-on-one discussion can also allow employees to actively participate in the performance evaluation by providing feedback to managers. This will improve communication and the relationship between employee and manager. Documentation of the manager and employee one-on-one session should also be provided so that there is acknowledgement of employee involvement and participation. This can be done by having a document where manager and employees provide signatures to confirm the discussion. In the appraisal process, it may also be beneficial for the employee to give themselves a self-appraisal, as it may serve as a constructive part of a performance evaluation system. Performance versus behavioral problems. Performance problems. Employee is unable to perform, not meeting the expectations of job, requires developing performance improvement process. Managers should look for the source of the problem and not the cause. Behavioral problems. Employee will not perform, violation of policies, procedures, or work rules, requires progressive discipline or immediate termination. It is important for managers to keep in mind the difference between performance problems and behavioral problems. Performance problems are manifested in an employee's failure to consistently meet the expectation or requirements of the job, where one has difficulty doing the work and producing the minimum level of quality or output required. These types of problems require developing a performance improvement process. A manager should also keep in mind that they need to look for the source of the problem and not necessarily the cause of it. Behavioral problems involve violations of policies or work rules and are context issues that are typically unrelated to the job performance. These issues require progressive discipline, which consists of counseling, verbal or written warnings, suspension without pay, and may lead to immediate termination.
Disciplinary action. The progressive disciplinary process may consist of counseling, one or more written warnings, suspension, with or without pay, and termination. Documentation should be placed in the employee's personnel file. Formal discipline may be used when behavior has been discussed previously and has not improved, or if behavior is severe enough to justify disciplinary action with the level of discipline depends on the situation. Maintaining a progressive disciplinary process is crucial to the correction process. As we have just mentioned, counseling. This is definitely a form of disciplinary action. It, however, removes the feeling of being cascaded. Further, the disciplinary action may involve written warnings, suspension with or without pay, as according to superior's discretion, and finally, termination. Such form of disciplinary action should always be documented and kept in an employee's file. Such methods of discipline may be used when conduct has been previously addressed and are rivaled or modified. However, punitive action may always correlate with the severity of the behavior. Performance evaluation. A formal review of previously set goals. A regulatory requirement in healthcare. Reviewed by the Joint Commission. Scoring of job performance determined by a scale that represents expectations. Evaluation or appraisal forms should have a minimum of a fill-in space and a maximum of an open writing space. If employees disagree with any part, supervisors must allow them to attach comments and file with the evaluation. The performance evaluation. This eval is primarily used to provide equitable measurements of employees' contribution and help produce an accurate appraisal of such employees' quality and quantity of produced work. It is a regular requirement in the healthcare field and can be reviewed over by the Joint Commission during an on-site visit. Each evaluation is based on the job performance scale set according to the work expectation. These forms should also have some type of writing space, whether a minimum of a fill-in space or an open writing space. The purpose provided space is to allow employees to comment, including these opposing then given the evaluation score. So this area allows the employee to give any feedback if they do not agree with the evaluating grade that they have received. What exactly do these evaluations include and who views them? A formal job evaluation may include a supervisor's commentary, perhaps a supervisor or director over the employee's performance, as well as a list of employee incidents, including verbal or written citations, a checklist describing job duties, or a note of list of achievements, objectives which have been previously discussed by both parties. Following the completion of an evaluation, 3 copies should be made and distributed to the employee's file, the actual employee, and the evaluator, and also making sure to sending the original to human resource. Employee termination. When regarding the termination of an employee, one should know that there are various types of termination. Voluntary, which consists literally quitting their work environment, or retirement and involuntary termination, which includes individualized termination or a reduction in force. A reduction in force tends to be synonymous with layoff. This reduction in force is due to the lack of funds, work, or a redesign in a position which requires the elimination of jobs, and thus should not expect to be recalled. Individual termination includes several forms of termination. There is being discharged, which occurs when an employee violates organizational policies. Then we have dismissal, which is an employee who fails to meet their job standards and thus must be let go. This form of termination is often termed as laid off, as it relates to job performance. And lastly, constructive discharge, which is a forced resignation. It is really important for human resource managers or for managers to understand that they must categorize the termination correctly. especially in the sense of a dismissal, which is the inability to meet job standards. The employee was not terminated because he or she was not a good employee, is that this employee was not able to meet the standards of the organization. Reduction in force. Reduction in force also has several forms of termination. These include re-engineering and downsizing, which is seen when the organization decides to redesign business activities and thus must focus on cost-effective outcomes. Mergers and acquisitions happen in response to financial pressures, which leads to the reduction of staff or management positions. And finally, layoffs. Layoffs occur when the organization falls into financial distress and therefore forced to let go of its employees. Because layoffs are quite radical and may lead to emotional bearing on the employee, it is suggested that the organization attempt other methods prior to laying off their employees. For example, releasing temporary or part-time staff, closing any job opportunities or openings, offering early retirement, and termination incentives are always suggested. So these are some of the things that are suggested to be done before laying off staff. Related definitions of termination. The upside of termination is unemployment compensation. Employees dismissed for reasons related to performance or those that are laid off are eligible for unemployment collection. Employee privacy is also imperative, as each employee should always be discharged in private and should be scheduled near the end of the workday. When organizations experience massive layoffs, outplacement services aid employees in preparing resumes, job searching, and help secure future employment. Roles of human resource and department managers in terminating employees. The role of human resource and department managers in relation to terminating employees is vital. Both human resource and department managers must be in accordance with termination details and ensure that all pertinent information is available. They must also ensure that organization policies are met and that one adheres to the progressive disciplinary policy. They must perform properly documented performance appraisals and sustain their personal credibility through good communication with their employees. Human resource and department managers must follow organizational guidelines to govern staff reduction, set a layoff plan, and assess its proposal, ensuring an unbiased plan. They must also be careful not to prolong layoffs, since employees tend to lose morale and work productivity when waiting to be notified of a possible layoff. Lastly, they must discuss issues related to the benefits with the departing employees. Human resource managers and department managers must ensure that they do follow these guidelines to ensure a smooth transition when terminating an employee. These are the references that we use for our presentation: Human Resource Management in Healthcare, Principle and Practice, Performance Management Process Checklist, Step by Step to a Performance Management System. Again, this is Team 9, and our presentation covers performance management and termination within large healthcare systems.